She said, "I'm going to my high school ex's birthday party. You're not invited, so don't wait up." That was Thursday evening, and I was in the kitchen chopping onions for dinner, while she lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I froze mid. Did she just tell me this like it was nothing? She didn't even glance up at me, just casually added, "It's Troy's 30th. Just the old gang from high school. You wouldn't know anyone anyway." Troy, my girlfriend's ex, the one she dated back in high school. My hands went stiff on the knife, and I stopped chopping. For years together, 2 years living together, and here she was, announcing I wasn't even welcome at someone else's party. Someone she once loved like it was just casual, small talk. The weird part. Every instinct in me screamed to argue, to yell, to demand she not go. But instead, a strange calm washed over me. I leaned on the counter and said, almost too casually, "Enjoy yourself." She looked up, eyes widening slightly, like she had expected fireworks or maybe guilt. "That's it?" she asked, clearly trying to provoke a reaction. "You're cool with this?" I shrugged. "Yeah, I thought you'd make it a thing. But hey, onions." She blinked, confused, then smirked faintly, clearly recovering quickly. "Okay, cool. Thanks for being mature about it." Saturday came, and she transformed herself for the occasion. 3 hours of hair, makeup, the dress she wore to her cousin's wedding last year, and the perfume I'd gifted her last Christmas. She came to the door, kissed my cheek with a faint lipstick mark, and said she might crash at a friend's if it ran late. "Sure, have fun," I said, watching her leave. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, I grabbed my phone, turned it off completely, and packed a small bag. My brother Jake lived about 2 hours away, and we'd been planning a trip to check out a new brewery district. I texted him earlier in the week to confirm. Now, I was gone. No calls, no texts, no have fun messages. Just gone. Within an hour of turning my phone back on, notifications exploded: texts, missed calls, voicemails. The tone of her messages shifted fast, from annoyed to frantic. "Hey, are you ignoring me? Where are you? Seriously, call me back." I showed Jake, who shook his head in disbelief. "Man, she told you not to wait up." "Exactly. So that's what I did." Sunday morning, I finally checked my phone. 20 more texts. 5 voicemails. Each one more desperate than the last. "I'm leaving the party. Where are you? You better be okay. Please, just call me." I stayed at Jake's, helping him paint his spare room, grabbing lunch, watching football, normal brother stuff. Completely And the more I ignored the messages, the more it became painfully clear. She had set herself up for this. She told me not to wait up, so I didn't. By 8:30 p.m., I returned home. Her car was in the lot, lights on. I took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. She was on the couch, laptop open, glaring like a storm about to break. And when I walked in, she exploded. "Where have you been?" she demanded. I calmly replied, "Jake's place." "Left you a note." Her face twisted, then faltered. "A note? You disappeared for 2 days, with a note." I met her gaze evenly. "You said don't wait up." "So I didn't. I made my own plans. I ignored your texts, calls, everything. You knew I was fine." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, a mixture of anger and shock. This is about Troy, isn't it?" I nodded. "It's about respect. You told me not to wait up, so I respected that. Just like I made my own plans. And you went to your ex's party, dressed up like it was a date, and expected me to sit home waiting. That's not fair." For a moment, silence. Then her expression softened, manipulative, almost rehearsed. "Baby, I didn't mean to make you feel excluded. It wasn't like that." I leaned back, voice steady. "Then explain it to me. You spent 3 hours getting ready for another man's party. You told me I wasn't invited. You planned to stay out all night. What part of that isn't disrespect? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I had reached a point where calm clarity replaced any emotional reaction. I wasn't going to beg for respect. Either she understood, or this relationship would not continue. And just like that, the first crack had appeared in what I realized was a foundation built on entitlement and passive disrespect. Monday morning, I woke up in my own apartment, feeling the quiet I hadn't realized I'd been missing. The place was mine again, in a way it hadn't been for months. No more subtle tension, no veiled insults, no "why aren't you responding?" buzzing in my pocket. I went about my morning routine, made coffee, scrolled a bit, and tried to ignore the gnawing anticipation that Vanessa's messages would start again. Sure enough, by late morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Multiple texts, voicemails, even an email from her friend, Rachel. "He's being controlling. You need to forgive him." I read through them, half in disbelief, half in amusement. So now I'm the villain for not sitting at home like a lapdog while my girlfriend paraded herself at her ex-boyfriend's party. I stayed calm, polite in the brief texts I sent. I went to Jake's. "I'm fine. Please stop messaging repeatedly. Nothing else." And then, around noon, the doorbell rang. It was Bethany, one of Vanessa's closest friends. "Hey," she said, stepping inside like she owned the place. "We need to talk." I gestured to the couch. "Sure, about what?" "About Vanessa," she said flatly. "You're being unfair." I let that hang in the air. "Unfair how?" "She went to a party, that's it. You're punishing her like she committed a crime." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my composure. "You mean the party she specifically told me I wasn't invited to? Dressed up for like it was a date, and planned to stay out all night. The party for her ex-boyfriend." Bethany's brow furrowed. "Yeah, so, people go to parties. She didn't cheat." "Exactly," I said, leaning forward. "She didn't cheat. She just prioritized her ex's feelings over mine, expected me to sit home like I didn't matter, and then got upset when I didn't. That's the disrespect I'm talking about." She paused, obviously not expecting me to articulate it this clearly. "Well, okay, but it's still, maybe you overreacted." I shook my head. "No, I didn't. I set a boundary. I respected her request not to wait up. I made my own plans. I responded accordingly. That's not overreacting. That's self-respect." Bethany looked like she wanted to argue more, but she could see I wasn't going to budge. "You really think she shouldn't have gone?" "I think she should have considered my feelings." "That's different." Later that evening, things escalated when Vanessa's mom, Diane, called, sharp, accusatory, protective. "He's being a child. You need to forgive him." I could hear Vanessa wailing in the background. Diane continued. "Over a party, for years down the drain." I answered calmly, step by step. "Diane, I've been cordial. I've been distant. The party itself wasn't the issue. The issue is disrespect. Vanessa chose to go to her ex's party, told me not to wait up, got dressed like it was a date, and then expected me to be okay with it. That's the problem. It's not the socializing, it's the calculated disregard for me." Diane was silent. I could almost hear her trying to wrap her mind around it. I don't agree," she finally said. "You're supposed to compromise in a relationship." "Compromise doesn't mean accepting disrespect," I replied evenly. "I didn't cheat. I didn't threaten her. I simply set boundaries for how I expect to be treated. If she can't respect that, that's her choice." By the end of the week, Vanessa was cold, barely speaking. She avoided eye contact. I stuck to my routine, sleeping in the spare room, keeping distance, letting her know through action what boundaries meant. She tried repeatedly to coax, manipulate, guilt trip, but I held firm. One night, Bethany and another friend, Christy, came over. "This isn't healthy," Christy said. "You're punishing Vanessa." I looked at them evenly. Punishing, she set up the situation. She expected me to wait around, ignored my feelings, and then played the victim. I'm responding to her choices. There's no punishment here. There's consequence. Vanessa interjected, voice cracking. You're holding this over my head. I went to a party. I didn't cheat. I can't believe this. I nodded. Yes, you went to a party. But you also prioritized your ex over me, got dressed to impress him, and expected me to sit at home. That's disrespect. That's what I'm not okay with. This isn't about control. It's about respect. Bethany shook her head. Maybe she should leave. This is toxic. Vanessa's eyes widened. You mean it? I didn't flinch. Yes, if you think dismissing my feelings, prioritizing your ex, and then blaming me for reacting appropriately is acceptable behavior. Maybe this isn't the relationship for you. You made your choice. I'm making mine. And just like that, the calm clarity I felt earlier turned into resolve. I wasn't going to be trapped in a relationship where disrespect was normalized. I wasn't going to argue endlessly while my boundaries were ignored. I stood firm, letting my actions, not just words, set the tone. By the following week, the tension in the apartment had become almost unbearable. Vanessa's attempts to reconcile were endless stares, guilt trips, promises that it wouldn't happen again. I stayed cordial but distant, existing more like a roommate than a partner. Every time she approached, I could see the mixture of frustration and desperation in her eyes. Then came Wednesday. Vanessa arrived with Diane and Bethany in tow, like a small intervention team. We're worried about you, Christy, another friend of hers, said as she walked in. About me? I asked, setting my bag down. Or about you? Vanessa jumped in, trying to plead her case. You're being unreasonable. I held up a hand. Hold on. I've been clear. I'm not punishing anyone. The problem isn't the party itself. It's the blatant disrespect. I didn't cheat. I didn't threaten anyone. But I am done being disregarded. Diane's voice rose sharply. You're throwing away for years over a party. Really? Yes, I said evenly. I'm choosing boundaries over being disrespected. That's the difference. Vanessa's face twisted into panic. You can't just... This is ridiculous. I didn't cheat. I nodded. Exactly. You didn't. But your actions showed me where I rank. Below your ex-boyfriend, below trying to impress old friends, below basic respect. That's not acceptable in a relationship. Bethany leaned forward, crossing her arms. Maybe he's right. Maybe you should leave. This isn't healthy. Vanessa's eyes widened. You mean it? Yes, I said. If you think dismissing my feelings and prioritizing your ex is acceptable, maybe we're done. And then it turned into a battle over logistics. Vanessa's threats suddenly shifted. Half the furniture, half the security deposit, emotional damages, and more. Her argument was simple. She'd lived here 2 years, contributed rent and utilities, and now she deserved half of everything. I stayed calm, methodical. The lease was in my name. She had paid minimal rent as a guest. The furniture, most of it was mine or bought before she moved in. I had records, receipts, and a spreadsheet I kept updated for my own sanity. Vanessa, I said, you can take what you actually own. The rest, I bought. I paid the security deposit. You're welcome to the items you purchased, nothing else. Her face flushed red. That's petty. No, factual, accurate, not petty, I replied evenly. You lived here for 2 years. You paid a fraction of the rent. That's a benefit, not a contribution to claim half of everything. Diane opened her mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. I'm not debating. Here's a list of everything that is yours. That's it. Take it and go. An hour later, the apartment was quiet again. Vanessa, Diane, Bethany, and Christy left with a few boxes of clothes, books, and the desk I had gifted her. My place felt lighter. Not emptier, like a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying had been lifted. Later. A letter arrived from a lawyer, poorly formatted, demanding money. I responded through my cousin, a paralegal. Explaining the facts clearly. She was not on the lease, paid minimal rent, and had no claim to the deposit or compensation. Cease contact or face harassment charges. I never heard from them again. 6 weeks later, Vanessa was living with her mum. Friends reported she was spinning a story of me being abusive, manipulative, and controlling. Completely false. Yet I knew the truth. I wasn't ready to date anyone. I focused on work, on my brother Jake, and finally enjoyed the apartment as mine. I rearranged furniture, turned her old desk into a bar cart, and felt a sense of peace. Her last text, from 3 weeks ago, summed it up. I hope you're happy. You ruined my life. I didn't respond. Because, for the first time in years, I truly was happy. Self-respect felt infinitely better than a relationship built on dismissiveness and entitlement. And I finally understood something. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Vanessa showed me she would prioritize an ex over her current boyfriend, manipulate friends and family to maintain a victim narrative, and disregard boundaries without remorse. I acted accordingly. And now, I live in the clarity of choice, consequence, and respect. Weeks had passed since Vanessa moved out, and life finally felt lighter. Friends checked in occasionally, and the story had already started twisting in the grapevine. Some claimed I overreacted, called me controlling or petty. I shrugged. I knew the truth. I hadn't crossed any line she had. I took the apartment as my own. We organized furniture, converted her old desk into a bar cart, finally enjoyed my own space. Even small things like walking through the living room felt different, peaceful. Occasionally, I heard from mutual friends about Vanessa's narrative claiming I kicked her out unfairly or stole thousands. But her story had holes. Friends who knew the full story privately validated me. It was a pattern I'd just noticed too late before. She often made herself the victim when relationships ended. I hadn't dated anyone since. Not ready, but I focused on work, hobbies, and more time with my brother Jake. Life was normal, calm, and mine. Her last message came from a new number. I hope you're happy. You ruined my life. I didn't reply. Why would I? For the first time in years, I truly was happy. Self-respect felt better than any relationship built on entitlement and disrespect. Lesson learned. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And now, I live in clarity, boundaries set, choices made, peace earned.